podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Networks on Sunday, July 10th, 2022. This is episode 1910. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Melissa. Poor data quality can cost organizations an average of $15 million every year. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Yeah, it's that time once again, time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smart watches, all that jazz. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number, 888-827-5536. That's toll-free from anywhere in the U.S. Or Canada, outside that area. You still need to call via Skype or something like that. Some sort of internet doohickey. Use Skype out to call 8888 Ask Leo. And the good news is it's a toll-free number, so it shouldn't cost you anything to do that. 888-827-5536. Website, techguylabs.com. That's important to remember because if you hear something, and I often say, well, I'll put a link in the show notes. That's where show notes live. techguylabs.com. Free, no sign up. You're more than welcome to peruse at your leisure. This is episode 1910. So you can go there. There will be links, the ones I mentioned, links to stuff I talk about. There should also be, after a couple of days, a transcript. Sundays, we put up the playlist for Professor Laura, our musical director. Those of you who hear the show on the radio will hear those songs. We don't put those songs. Somebody's asking me, what are the songs? You keep talking about the songs. I don't hear the songs because he's listening to the podcast. And, well, you know how that is with licensing, song licensing. You know that? You know how that works? So the radio station pays for the song licensing. They have an ASCAP BMA license, but it only covers the broadcast on the radio. Podcasts, whole nother thing, whole nother payment, of which I have not made. So I haven't done it. No. So we take the music out. Simple enough. So, but if you want to know what the music was or you want to re-add it, you can do that. We'll put the list of songs played up on the show notes, techguylabs.com. Do it Sunday afternoon. We'll also put audio and video from the show, a transcript, all that stuff at techguylabs.com. Friday, Apple opened orders for the new MacBook Air featuring Apple's new M2 chip. And I guess really the only question is, should you buy it? Should you buy it? I don't know. You asking me? What are you asking? Oh, I'm the tech guy. That's right. I should have an opinion. I do have an opinion. Previously, Apple has released the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is probably shouldn't be named the Pro. It's the 13-inch low-end MacBook with the M2 chip. And there have been a lot of stories, mostly YouTubers. Seems like YouTubers are the only ones who really test this stuff. That's not true. But YouTubers are the only ones who really need you to click that link and watch the video because that's how they make their money. So they tend to be maybe a little over dramatic in their assessments. You've seen the thumbnails. Ah! The YouTuber screams, his eyes wide in amazement. The MacBook Pro is so hot. Last year, no, it was 2 years ago, the YouTuber famously took the 16-inch MacBook Pro and put it in the freezer and said, hey, it works a lot better in the freezer. Well, yeah, is this new chip from Apple hotter? Probably, because it's bigger. It's got more stuff going on. So, it's doing more stuff. It's the same, and this is important and will be, by the way, for a while, the same microprocessor process. Oh, this is going to get a little complicated. When they make these chips, as you probably noticed, you're getting more and more chip stuff, more and more functionality in the same size or smaller size package. That's because the processes are shrinking. They're shrinking. So the 8088, which was the first Intel chip to go in an IBM PC back in 1981. I don't even know what you'd call the process, how big the traces are. They sort of, it's not exactly, but they sort of, the idea is they measure the size of the lines of the wires connecting the circuitry, because of course the smaller these wires are, the more transistors they can get on a chip, and as a result, the more powerful these chips are. This is what we call Moore's Law. Moore's Law. So which was the number of transistors on a chip will double every 18 months. And it's held true for quite a while. And it's really what's powered the technology revolution, is that these chips double in power effectively every year and a half. Doubles a lot. Doubles 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 500, 12, 1024. Doubles is a lot. every 18 months. And that's why we've, got these little. So the original 8088, which was put in the 1981 IBM PC, had 29,000 resistors. 29,000 resistors. And it was it was a 3 micrometer node. We're now at 3 nanometers. Micrometer is a millionth of a meter. Nanometer is a billionth of a meter. So it was 1,000 times, those lines were 1,000 times fatter, and it had 29,000 transistors. The current M2 chip from Apple is 5 nanometers, 5 billionths of a meter. So it's almost 1,000 times smaller. And it has 30 billion chips. Remember, 30 billion compared to 29,000. Okay, so we've in the intervening 44 years, we've made some pretty big jumps. Weirdly, the smaller these traces, this process, the cooler the chip runs, and yet you could put more stuff on it, which means the hotter it runs. So anyway, it's still a 5 nanometer node for the M2. So it's the same process as the M1. You follow me here? Same process, but more transistors, almost 50% more transistors, more stuff like 8K decoders and stuff, and machine language stuff, and it's faster. So it's bigger. So it's hotter, because it's the same process. It's not going to be any cooler. So it's hotter. So all of this to say it's hotter. Boy, that's a long way to go to say it's hotter. It is hotter than the old chip. And what Apple did with this new 13-inch MacBook Pro is they put it in the same exact case as last year's M1. Same fan, same everything. Same everything. So is it going to be hotter? Yes, it's going to be hotter. And is the MacBook Air going to be hotter? Well, the new MacBook Air is not the same case as the old MacBook Air. It's redesigned. Looks to have a little more room. It's not a wedge anymore. It's square. Still no fan. There's a fan in the Pro, but there's not a fan in the Air. Will it run hotter? Probably. Now, why does that matter? When a chip gets hot, if it gets too hot, it has to slow down. It's like a car. It's overheating, so it slows down, cools off a little bit. And so what YouTubers were seeing on the new MacBook Pro with the M2 chip, the first M2 device, was it would get to a pretty high temperature and then slow down. You know what? All laptops do that. The only question is how fast it gets to that high temperature. In other words, how much work you can do before it overheats. If you're buying a MacBook Pro and maybe you want to do things like encode video or launch rocket ships, something that requires the processors to work hard for more than, say, 20 minutes, then cooling becomes very important. You probably shouldn't buy a MacBook Pro 13-inch. You should wait for the bigger one with more fans, more air, or even a desktop. But most people who buy the MacBook Air are not launching rocket ships with that. That's, the Air is for general computation, surfing the net, getting your email, buying Pez dispensers on eBay, the important stuff. And for that, it's fine. So back to the question, should I buy a MacBook Air, the new one? Well, it's pretty, comes in 4 colors, midnight blue, that's pretty tempting. It's almost black, it's dark blue. It's very tempting. It's pretty. Did I say it's pretty? It's a newer design. Has the newer chip, which is, average, could be about 20% faster than last year's M1. So it's a little faster. Remember, not after a few minutes, after 20 minutes, you're going to slow down because it's getting hot. And maybe that's going to happen faster this time than it did last year, that kind of thing. If you are looking to run big, long-running workloads, then you probably shouldn't get this. If you want a light, thin laptop that's faster and good for the stuff you do, this is a good choice, especially if you don't have an M1 yet, if you're still on an Intel. Really, if you say to me, I have an Intel Mac, should I get the new M1 or M2? I would say yes. These are so much better. Yes. There's only a few exceptions, people who have specialized needs. All of which to say, Apple has released the new M2 MacBook Air. They announced it on Friday. And if you go to the store now and say, I want to, special order it with a little extra memory because it can go to 24 gigs now, maybe a nice big hard drive, 2 terabytes, you won't be getting it till August at the earliest. In fact, let me check because it's slipping. Apple finally is not good, but I'm just saying is being hit after all this time, unlike everybody else, with supply chain issues. So if you max out, let's see what the delivery date is, August 10th if you just get the base model. But let's say I want to, this is a nice computer. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get 24 gigs. That's another $400. 2 terabytes storage. That's another $600. How long is that going to? Well, actually, it comes a little faster. That's August 2nd. That's interesting. That's kind of not what I thought. So the base model is taking longer. Anyway, you're still going to be waiting almost a month. August 2nd through the 9th. Almost a month to get it. That's also part of the equation. Will Apple have more new computers this year? Yes. Lots more. New iPhones? Yes, in September. We'll have a new Apple Watch? Yes, in September. We'll have new iPads? Probably in October. So that's always the case, right? There's always something new. So there is the answer to your question. That's the story. New Macs are out. Should you get one? Yeah, if you have an Intel, it would probably be benefit. If you've got a little money in your pocket, some spare change, it's I think $100 more than it was last year. Yeah, these things, these things happen. Yes, probably worth it. Yeah, battery life. That's a good question. Is the battery life better? I think it's the same, which is better because it's got more going on. Apple's funny because they're not that specific. They say things like you can run it for 14 hours watching movies. They're careful not to be too... let me look and see what we're getting here on the MacBook Air. The Air is not as lesser battery life than the Pro. All right, tech specs, MacBook Air, learn more. Tech specs. Jump ahead here, battery life. 18 hours Apple TV app movie playback. 15 hours wireless web. That's pretty good. My experience with the M1 has been it's so long that you don't really even pay attention to it. You just charge it whenever you're in the mood for it. Operator, get me transatlantic. When did this song come out? 1925? Hello there, Kim Schaffer, the unbreakable phone angel, our operator. Get me transatlantic. Pronto.
I do not remember that song at all.
Sheena Easton. Or as we call her, Sheila E. No, I know it's somebody different. Don't know.
John is over there laughing.
He's laughing at me.
With his lack of voice.
Yeah, he has no voice, but he's laughing. So it comes out like... Snidely whiplash.
Last show before for 2 weeks.
What?
For you.
Oh, yes. Micah Sargent will be filling in for me on Saturday. You'll be here, though, right?
I will be here.
Sunday will be a we generously call a best of something somewhere from a tape somewhere, and then the following Saturday I'll be back again, Micah, and then I return on the 24th.
Right.
Because I'm going, probably ill-advised, but I'm going to Alaska on a cruise.
Seems like a good idea.
We planned it a year ago. We thought, oh, this COVID thing will be over by then.
Yeah.
But everybody on board is vaccinated and wearing a mask, and you have to test before you get on. So I figure it's pretty good. It's gonna be it'll be pretty good. It'll be pretty good.
I too feel sorry for the people who will be left at the dock.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm really nervous. You notice, I told John test. I said I'm not coming near you because I'm nervous. If I got it now, I would, and I don't think you get. I don't know if you get your money back. I don't think you do. So I don't want to get sick.
I don't know.
So, hello, Kim Schneffer. How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
What should I? Who should I?
You want to go to Philip in Dayton, or not Philip? He said Phil. I said Philip. Phil in Dayton, Ohio.
I've had my fill of you. Thank you, there, Kim. Hello, Phil in Dayton, Ohio. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, how you doing? I am formally known as Philip, but I prefer Phil. So in either way, she had it.
I like Phil.
Okay.
I like Philip.
Yeah.
I had an Uncle Phil.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Many, many moons ago. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Great uncle.
I want to. This is a little complicated. I'll make it as simple as I can. I actually have two questions. About 6 years ago, I rescued a couple of really nice Samsung monitors from my employer's e-waste bin.
Okay.
Repaired them, and I've slapped them on a human-scale arm from my home computer.
Okay.
And they've been working okay. I mean, beautiful monitors. They're 1600 by 1200 resolution, Windows 10, nice.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the arm over time, because these monitors are pigs and they weigh about 20 pounds apiece.
Oh, they're heavy.
Started sinking down to the point where it's almost over my desktop and I can't get it to stay up.
Oh.
So I have extra monitors around, and I said, I'll switch these off to some newer widescreen monitors. I had a pair of HP widescreen that are 1920 by 1200. I swapped them off, and they're brighter and they're nicer and all this kind of stuff, except for one problem.
What?
I have a little bit of macular degeneration, and consequently, the dialog boxes and the text and things that come up on the new higher resolution monitors are all smaller and they're difficult to read. I had them scaled better on the Samsungs, but everything reset when I hooked up the new monitors.
Yeah.
So I've gotten into some things in Windows setup, and there's places where you can do some very gross adjustments to text sizes and that sort of thing, but it doesn't seem to be universal, and there's a lot of system text boxes that pop up.
Hold on a sec. Got to take a break. Sam Abuelsamid, the car guy, coming up. But I will finish our conversation before that. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. So there's two ways to adjust what you see on the screen on Windows. There is a DPI adjustment, but that's what you're playing with, and that does not affect everything. That only affects things that pay attention to it. What you really want to do is go in the monitor settings and choose a different resolution. And that will change everything.
But does that make things less sharp?
It depends a little on the monitor. We were talking about this yesterday. Normally, you'd want it to be an integer division ratio. So you want it to be half, a quarter of the native resolution. So let's say the monitor's native resolution is 2160, 2,160 lines from top to bottom. That's 4K. Divide that in half is 1080. That should be as crisp as 2160 because it's exactly half. Divide it by a third, and depending on the monitor, it may or may not look a little jaggy. Of course, as you think about it, if you're scaling a pixel, if you got 2 pixels and you turn it into 1, it's not going to, or rather 1 pixel turn it into 2, that's not going to make it more jaggy. But if you take 1 pixel and try to do 1 1/3, that's going to make it more jaggy. So, but some monitors handle that quite well. In fact, Apple monitors, we were talking about this yesterday with regard to Apple monitors, are by default often scaled to 1 2/3, things like that. Really weird scalings. But on your monitor, which one? What is? It's not the Samsung now. What is the new one?
It is an LA2206X, which is a HP compact.
Oh yeah, they said HP. That's right. So I don't know offhand off the top of my head how the HPs will handle it. Modern monitors are pretty good about fractional scaling. So try. All you can do is try it. Ideally, you would if it's a 1080p monitor, you probably don't want to go down to 540 because that's really low resolution. So there, you're going to maybe try 720. But if you can do that in the display settings, if you don't see all the choices, then there are little programs you can add to do it. But again, when Windows scales to DPI, it's doing the same thing. If you set it to 125%, which I guess is what you probably did, that is not fraction. That is not an integer fraction, but it still looks okay. So those are the 2 things to play with. DPI. Windows used to be a little more flexible with scaling monitor DPI. I don't know if are you on Windows 11 or 10 or
10.
10. I'm looking on 11. And it's no longer a DPI setting. It's a different. It's a weird setting. But you can play with. So those are the 2 things to play with. You play with the control panel. It's not going to affect every app. Every app doesn't have to respect it. You play with the resolution. The apps don't even know. They just say, "Well, that's the resolution of the screen. That's what we're going to do." So that will affect everything. And given you're having some macular degeneration, obviously bigger's better. You might try 720. For somebody with normal vision, that might be awfully big. They might say, wow, that text is big. For you, you might go, oh, that's the sweet spot. I actually, as I get older, on all my phones, I make my text big. Let's talk about your contacts. Let's talk about your contacts, your database. Our sponsor for the Tech Guy podcast this week, the really great folks at Melissa, who I know well and love. And I really love the business they're in because it's so important. I've told this story before. I used to, I could say name names, I guess, Restoration Hardware. They have a beautiful catalog. We bought all our furniture for the studio from Restoration Hardware. So I was on their mailing list, right? And we had a beautiful, full color, it's about a 2 inches thick catalog. At one point, I was getting 3 of them to the same name and address. 3. That must cost them an ungodly amount of money, all because somehow I got duplicated in their customer list. What a waste. I didn't want it. They were wasting money. They needed Melissa. Poor data quality can cost organizations, on average, $15 million a year. And what do I mean by poor data quality? Well, people move. They change names. Their emails change. You might have duplication. That's bad. And the longer poor quality data stays in your system, the more losses you can accumulate. For your business to be successful, your customer information needs to be accurate, and you need Melissa, the leading provider of global data quality and address management solutions. It's also a customer service issue, right? If customer calls, and you say, "Oh, hi, Jerry," and their name is Madeline, that's embarrassing. Well, I have Jerry here. I'm sorry, my name's Madeline. That's embarrassing. Or you have the wrong address. You live in Muncie, right? No, I live in Miami. Customers are already frustrated. Things can go from bad to worse. So, I mean, those are some simple examples. You could think of a lot of reasons why it's important your customer list is up to date. Check out Melissa's cloud-based data cleansing and enrichment tool. Very easy to use. Step 1, you upload your file. It can be an Excel file, a CSV file. You're actually on the web. It's that first tab. You can even copy it, paste it into the second tab. Then you select the data quality service. Click Next. Map the input fields. Yeah, that's first name, last name, right? Select the output fields and the data to append. Process your list, and bada bing, bada boom. Clean, beautiful, pristine, crystal clear. They have data matching, which eliminates clutter and duplicates, restoration hardware. Reducing postage and mailing costs. You get batch address cleansing, which will go through an entire list for accuracy and completeness. You have name verification, which parses and standardizes first and last names, which is actually pretty important, right? You can analyze your data to improve quality over time. You've got email verification, which removes 95% of bad email addresses from the database. And Melissa's flexible. You can do it on-prem. They have a lookups app on iOS and Android. You can do a SaaS. You can do a secure FTP. They even have an API. So you can embed Melissa right into your customer service app or your shopping cart. Your data is always secure with Melissa. They undergo continuous independent audits to make sure that they're compliant and secure and private. They're SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR compliant. Melissa's been doing this for 37 years. 37 years as the experts in data quality. More than 10,000 businesses know them as the address experts. And if you sign up for a service level agreement, 24/7 world-renowned support from their global support center. Melissa, Melissa. You need this. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa.com/twit. Melissa. Melissa.com/twit. Let me thank him so much for supporting the Tech Guy Show. You support us too, by the way, simply by using that full URL. That way they know you saw it here. Melissa.com/twit. Thank you, Melissa. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy, Sam Abuelsamid, our fabulous car guys here, principal researcher at Guidehouse Insights, podcaster, wheelbearings.media. We were talking to Phil. I just want to wrap that up before we get into the car talk, Sam. Phil was saying, he has a new HP monitor, but it's a little too small for him to read. He has macular degeneration, which means it gets harder and harder to read small text. And so there are two ways to scale a Windows machine. One is in this display control panel. There's a section called Scale and Layout, and you can set the scale from 100%, which would be normal, to 125, which would be bigger. In fact, I see on my Dell laptop, 125% is recommended, but you can go all the way up to 200%. And you should just set it for whatever makes you comfortable. Not every app will follow that recommendation. So right below it, at least on Windows 11, I suspect it's the same on Windows 10, there is a display resolution setting. And you could play with that as well and see what suits you best, where it's not jaggy, where you can read it. Make yourself comfortable. That's really the rule. Make yourself comfortable. Maybe for you, 1280 by 800 or 720 would be the preferred resolution. So go ahead and try that. And the nice thing is you can play with it until you get something you like. Sam Abuelsamid, all the way from Ypsilanti. Good to see you. How's it going, Sam?
It's going great. The weather's beautiful here. It's not too hot. It's in the low 80s, not humid. The sun's shining. It's perfect.
I'm so jealous. How nice. We're getting into the 90s up here. It's getting hot. So
I'll be heading out there in a few days.
Oh, good. Come by. That's right. In fact, maybe we can we're not going to be here when you're here.
Yeah, we're getting in Wednesday afternoon.
And we're leaving Thursday.
Yeah.
And probably packing Wednesday night. So, well, have a nice visit. I know for you it's vacation with your wife, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're sitting in front of a beautiful little BMW. Is that an i3, i7?
It is an i3.
It's
yeah.
the i3, okay.
Yeah, it's the little oddball in the BMW lineup. Their first dedicated EV that they built. They launched it in 2013.
It looks like a martini olive. As early EVs, they all look like martini olives to me.
Well, this particular car was spawned out of a project that BMW did called the Megacity Project, which started in 2007. And what they were doing was they were trying to figure out what is the right kind of car for the megacity of the future. And megacities are defined as cities of population of 10 million or more. And the number of megacities around the world has been growing steadily over the last couple of decades and will continue to grow. So what they came up with was the i3, which is kind of it's a little bit tall, but it's short. It's got a nice small physical footprint on the road. It's easy to drive around in cities and park. It's electric. It doesn't have a huge amount of range. And the reason I brought it up, because in fact, the i3 is actually going out of production this month. They're ending production of it after.
Isn't my wife's electric Mini Pro basically an i3 sled?
It's based on it uses the hardware, it uses the motor and the battery and some other components from the i3, but it's in a different form factor. So it's not as tall, it's lower, it's smaller, but it's using a lot of the same hardware.
So her battery is similarly small and typically under 100-mile range. It's not very long range.
Right. And the i3, when they launched it, the original version was about 100-mile range. By the end of its run, they had put a bigger battery in there, so it was about 140-mile range. And the reason I bring it up, even though it's about to go out of production, is I got an email this week from a listener on KFI to the radio show. Her name's Gina.
Hi, Gina.
She sent the email into feedback at wheelbearings.media, and anybody else that's got any questions, feel free to use that address and send your questions, and I'll either try and answer them here or on Wheel Bearings, the podcast. But her question was, I listened to you on Leo's radio program on KFI, and even though I'm not a huge car person, I enjoy listening. I purchased a used 2017 BMW i3 for $17,000 about 18 months ago. I had a battery charger installed at my home. Good plan. I only get about 150 miles on a full charge, so I'm limited where I can go. However, I generally stick close to home anyway. If I do need to travel, I'll rent a car, which is actually a really great solution because most people, 90% of daily trips are less than 40 miles a day. And it's only relatively infrequently that you need to go further. And this is actually a really great solution is, to have a shorter range EV that's going to be less expensive, uses less battery, and it's going to be more efficient. And then, for those occasional times when you need to go further, go rent something. Rent a gas or a diesel car. Anyway, I'm just wondering what you think. At what point should I consider trading it in terms of its life expectancy? I do like it very much beyond all that. This car, Gina's car is only 5 years old. It's probably got, relatively low mileage on it. I would guess it's probably got no more than probably 35 or 40,000 miles on it, maybe even less. And it's, because this particular car uses a carbon fiber structure, it's not going to rust. So corrosion's not going to be a problem. In fact, since she's a KFI listener in Southern California, it's probably not going to rust anyway. But even if you were living somewhere else, an i3 is not going to have rust problems. So the battery should be in probably still in really good condition. This car should easily last, the battery should go at least a minimum of 10 years and retain most of its original capacity. And the rest of the car itself will probably last 20 years or more easily, just because, as I said, it's a carbon fiber structure. And the suspension parts are metal, but
and it's not going to rust. There's no road salt out here.
Yeah, it should go for a long time.
Is 10 years based on, say, 10,000 miles a year? Is it by miles, really?
Well, the traditional rule of thumb in vehicle design over the years, and actually it should probably be adjusted upwards, but when I first started as an engineer in the early 90s, most components were designed for 10-year, 150,000 mile lifespan. So 15,000 miles a year, 12 to 15,000 miles a year is the average that most consumers drive. So that 10-year, 150,000 miles is what most stuff was designed for.
150,000, okay. But it's really the number of charges and discharges, isn't it? At least it is for a phone or a laptop.
Yeah, charging cycles.
Yeah.
But this, the battery in this vehicle is warranted for 8 years, 100,000 miles.
There you go.
And it, based on what we've been seeing, data we've been seeing from real world use, most EV batteries are lasting, should last well over 10 years. And the average age of new cars on the road today is over 12 years. Now, even though they're designed for 10, they tend to last a lot longer. 25, 30-year-old cars are not at all uncommon.
There's an issue, though, at the end of the life of these batteries. I ran into a guy the other day. He said, I'm putting all my money in gas and oil. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, because as soon as people find out that these batteries have a massive recycling, end-of-life problem on these electric cars, they're going to stop buying them. Is that true?
No, these batteries are all going to be recycled. And in fact, a lot of them are already being recycled. There's a number of companies that are doing recycling, and the automakers and the battery manufacturers are counting on that recycling to get the raw materials they need to make new batteries, so they don't have to mine so much, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to get it from recycled batteries. Redwood Materials, which was started by J.B. Straubel, the former CTO of Tesla, they're already recycling enough batteries every year, enough batteries and scrap material from battery production for 6 gigawatt hours of battery production, which is about 60,000 vehicles worth of batteries every year.
Wow.
And so
that's good, because the cobalt, the lithium, all of those things, they're hard to mine. It's ugly.
Battery recycling is actually pretty straightforward.
Good.
And this is something that's going to be expanding dramatically. We haven't done a lot of it up till now because we haven't got that many end-of-life batteries yet. But it's going to expand dramatically over the next decade.
Sam Abuelsamid, listen to his podcast, Wheel Bearings. You can find it at Wheel Bearings Media and wherever you get podcasts. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
So is the recycling close to 100%, or?
Yeah, I mean, they're not stuffing these batteries into landfills. What we're getting is a mix of, they're either being recycled or they're being put into second life applications, using them, repurposing them for stationary storage. For example, at EV charging stations, even if a battery's only got 60, 70% of its original capacity, or even a little bit less, if it doesn't have to move around, you can still use a battery with 50% of its original capacity for stationary storage at a DC fast charging station, and then you don't have to pump as much power into the charger. You can store the energy. You can charge the batteries continuously, store the energy there, and then feed the battery into the charger in those bursts when it's needed for fast charging.
What happens when the battery is just fully used up? Can you take it apart and recycle it?
At that point, you take it out and recycle it.
And you can recycle the component materials.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
they use a process called hydrometallurgy, where they literally take the battery modules and they put them through a giant shredder. It looks like a paper shredder, but on a much larger scale. Shreds it into little strips, and they mix it with a solvent that separates all of the component materials, the nickel, manganese, cobalt, copper, aluminum, lithium, and extract all that, reprocess it right back into the same materials that are ready to go straight back into new battery production. And that's what Redwood and some others are doing right now. So Redwood is getting used batteries and battery scrap from both the Tesla Panasonic battery factory in Nevada, as well as the AESC plant that supplies Nissan in Tennessee. That's about 50% of their batteries. The other 50% are consumer electronics batteries. And then reprocessing that material and selling that back to Tesla. And it's cheaper than the virgin materials. So manufacturers love using it. And there's also some good evidence that it actually produces better performing batteries, because every time you recycle them, you're actually re-refining that material. So you're taking out more of the impurities that were in there in the virgin material, and you actually get better performance out of it on second, third use. So it's something that I don't see that end of life being a problem. There's a whole bunch of new recycling plants being built along with all the new manufacturing plants over the next decade, and so they will get taken care of properly.
Good. That's reassuring.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a question for you. I sent an email to you and Lisa earlier in the week. I don't know if you saw it. Just asking if you had any suggestions about good places to eat in the.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to answer that. Area. So you're going to be in Guerneville?
Yeah, that's how it's. Yeah, near there. Yeah. I mean, Airbnb near there.
There's French Laundry, but that's probably too late to get a reservation. But if there were a cancellation, that's a Michelin 3-star.
French Laundry's over in Yountville.
Yeah, that's not.
Guerneville's the other way. It's west of Santa Rosa.
It's half an hour drive. But Guerneville itself,
Or, over towards the coast, towards Bodega Bay.
Oh, you should definitely go to Hog Island and have some oysters. We also like
absolutely.
Nick's Cove, which is also over
I already
there.
got a recommendation from somebody from
I like Nick's
Nick's
Cove. That's kind of funkier, but a lot of fun. You're not far from Santa Rosa. I'm trying to think what the best restaurants in Santa Rosa are. Petaluma, we've got a great
if you
one.
If you think of something, just shoot me a note.
I will.
later.
Yeah. All right, you want to stick around for the top?
Right. Yep.
Quite a scream there. Must be somebody with printer problems. Leo Laporte, or maybe it's a tech guy getting called with printer problems. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. It came. I'm so excited. It looks like a Fisher-Price toy, but this is from Snap, the folks at Snapchat. It is a Pixy selfie drone. A Pixy selfie drone. All the influencers will be carrying these around because now you can do a selfie from a drone. I guess it's kind of self-explanatory. You put it in your hand and you go, fly, little Pixie, fly. And then it takes pictures of you, video or stills, which it then uploads to Snapchat. Well, isn't that sweet? I think Redcon 5, this has to go with us on the cruise, don't you think? I think so. The Pixy. It is pretty. There are other companies selling selfie drones. In fact, after I ordered this, somebody said, you nitwit, you can get it, because I think this is like $250. You can get it for half the price from, some Chinese company. So I did. I got the cheap one, and it's terrible. The camera is awful. So I'm hoping, we'll see. I'm hoping this Pixy will be better. I'm going to charge it up. Maybe by the end of the show, I'll be able to use. I should use it in the studio because for sure, if I use it on the cruise, it'll be gone forever. Almost certainly. 8888. Ask Leo the phone number if you want to talk high tech. Vincent's on the line from Las Vegas. Hello, Vincent.
Hey, Leo, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm hot.
Well, I thought you were pretty hot, but now you've confirmed it. What's up?
Yeah, it's going to be 110 today.
Ow.
Yeah, 111 on Monday and Tuesday.
And you choose to live there.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, I love Vegas. We were thinking about getting a retirement home there. I wouldn't mind it. Are you in Vegas proper or Henderson or somewhere like that? Or
Vegas proper. I'm about a mile from the Strip.
See, that's where I'd want to be because that's where all the fun is.
Right, exactly.
Well, what can I do for you, my friend?
Well, I have had a motor router. I'm a Netgear motor router for a little over a year, and it's been working great, except starting last week, it started dropping connectivity, and I would have to reset it every 3 to 4 hours, and then I would be up and running again. So trying to troubleshoot it, I went into the logs and saw what the error messages are, and when I ran down one of them, I went through the first 4 fixes, none of which helped, and then we got to the 5th, which says your modem router is probably going out.
Oh, no.
So I went online and doing my due diligence, reading up on all these modem routers, and as I'm reading the reviews, 6 to 7% of almost every modem router says the same thing with a 1-star review, loses connectivity within a year.
Ay.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a 3.0, a 3.1, whether it's a $100 modem or a $250 modem. It always seems that the biggest complaint on the 1-star reviews is that after a period of time within a year, it loses connectivity.
Huh.
So my general question to you is this something that is happening more and more frequently today with modem routers? Is there a sure bet? I mean, I'd rather not rent one for $13 a month.
Of course not.
Buy one.
And you don't have to combine the modem and the router, by the way. You can buy a standalone cable modem. That's what I do. In fact, I have a Netgear CMS 1000 that is quite a good modem. And then I have a separate router. I think what's going on, I'm going to guess what's going on here is it's a heat problem. You know, those things typically, they're computers. They have a processor, they have memory, they run software, firmware. But typically they don't have fans because people have them in the living room. They don't want to hear. So they're not cooled. They're passively cooled. And I bet you if you feel it, especially if there are a lot of bits going through it, it feels pretty hot. And that would make sense if it's wearing out in a year. It's not supposed to wear out in a year. You probably could improve the life of it by putting a fan on it, blowing on it, you know, getting better cooling. Make sure it's not in a cabinet or a closet where it's not cooled off. Keeping it cool, and that's hard in Vegas. I know. I'm sure your place is air conditioned, but keeping it cool would probably add to the life. And you ask, well, is this happening more often? Probably because you're putting more bits through it than ever before, right? And so more bits means hotter. Plus, combining a router and a modem into one hot little box is also going to make it a little bit more prone to overheating. And heat is death for processors. It really is. It just, you know, after a while, it just wears out. I bet you this is common in Vegas. So, couple of solutions. One is to get a standalone cable modem. In fact, you might even be able to. So, is your Netgear already dead?
No, it's still said, every 3 or 4 hours I have to reset it.
Yeah. So Netgear sells a very good gigabit speed cable modem. This one I use at home. It's DOCSIS 3.1. It's under $200. CM1000. I have had mine for years without any effort, any problem, or anything. You know, it's good. Now, I use a big old Ubiquiti giant rack mount router, so and it's got fans. Believe me, the thing is noisy. Plus, it's in a closet, so I added fans to the closet to keep the closet cool, and a vent to the outside world. So this thing is intentionally cooled, and it's been very reliable. So that's one possibility. Just you could continue to use the router part of that and just get a standalone cable modem, separate them out. That will get some of the heat out of there. And I think it has to be heat. The other thing you could do is you could blow a fan across it. It's ventilated. Right. Does it have holes on it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes it does feel hot, but now again, I only have 50 Mbps. It's not, or Mbps.
Yeah, that's not a huge amount. Certainly a gigabit would be a lot hotter. 50
right.
megabits, you know, that's not a huge amount. But if it's a consistent 50 megabits, yeah, I mean, that's what you should do. You should feel hot to the touch. That's the only. These are all solid state, so that's the really heat or moisture, which I'm sure it's not wet.
No,
heat or moisture is probable. In fact, it's the only thing I can think of that would be causing the problem. It's not the Wi-Fi stopping. It's just you lose connectivity. You have to reboot it to get connectivity. Is that right?
Well, yes. What I do, it doesn't seem to affect the connectivity for like my Apple TV and streaming
because they're
apps.
hardwired, right?
No, they're not. That's the thing that's strange. It's only my phone and my computer that lose the connectivity.
Well, that's interesting.
Right.
Is the Apple TV closer to the Netgear?
No, I could have my phone right next to the Netgear, box, and it still doesn't work.
Well, now I'm wondering what's going on. That's interesting.
Tell me about it. So am I.
Those can be very common and very difficult to solve problems having to do with, internal settings like MTS and TLS and all these things that there was for a while, Apple laptops were banned on college campuses everywhere because they were so aggressive about acquiring an IP address. They'd knock off the rest of the systems on the network, and so they had to ban them. There's things like that can happen. But my experience with Netgear, I don't have a dual cable modem router. I have standalone. And I've used standalone routers from them, and there's very good equipment. And it doesn't seem odd. It seems odd to me that would die a lot. I'm not sure. And that's really weird that your Apple TV continues to stream without any problem while everything else is dropped out. And then resetting. That does sound like a DHCP problem. It sounds like a software problem. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Let me think how you could see that. Because you're it's not distance, it's not a weak signal. It sounds to me, in fact, one thing you could try with the computer and the phone, well, it's harder to do with the phone, but you could do with the computer, is to refresh the DNS or the DHCP. So if you go in the network settings, you can reacquire an IP address and see if that fixes it.
What about the phone, though?
Well, just see if it fixes it, because that'll tell you that's what's going on. And it's probably going on with the phone. I don't know what I'm not saying there's a permanent fix. We're just trying to figure out what's going on. So if that does fix it, though, then that is it's not an overheating problem. It's not a failure problem. And in fact, I don't think it is now, because you tell me the Apple TV never has this problem, right? It doesn't ever drop out.
Well, it does eventually. It will.
Oh, it will eventually.
Yeah.
It's just not at the same time.
Not at the same time. It seems like it keeps the signal. And I can even bounce using AirPlay. And even that lasts longer than the phone and the computer connection.
And it's all wireless.
It's all wireless.
Yeah, it sounds now more like it's a DHCP, possibly a DHCP issue. So as you know, what happens with a router, it has the public IP address, and then it will route traffic coming in from the outside world to individual devices, each of which has their own local address. In Netgear, sometimes it's a 10 dot, usually it's a 192.168 dot local address. And the router's job is to say, oh yeah, the Apple TV's got this stream, so when traffic comes in for that, send it over there. The laptop is on this port, send it over there, that kind of thing. Occasionally what will happen is you get DHCP problems, and by releasing the DHCP and renewing it, that's the term that you'd see, I think, in the control panel. Let me see. Are you on Windows or Mac?
Yeah, renew DHCP lease.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Renew DHCP lease. Try that. If that fixes it without a reboot, then that's telling us there is a DHCP error in the Netgear, and that's a router problem, usually. And probably, in fact, maybe this is the first thing to do is make sure you have the latest firmware on that Netgear.
Yeah, and of course, firmware is sent by the manufacturer, not by me.
No, that's right. That's right. I feel like you should be able to, well, at least try that. That's the first thing to do, is see if renew and release and renew fixes it. If it does, then we know it's not a ISP issue, nor is it a overheating issue. It's a software issue. It's a DHCP issue with the router. If that doesn't fix it, and it's still, and like they all go out eventually, I think it's just overheating. In which case you're going to need to get a new one, I think. Or you could try putting a fan across it. I think that'd be kind of an interesting thing. Sam, 6 minutes, 30 seconds.
All right. So James was asking about this proposed bill in North Carolina, which is actually the other topic.
This is a joke. This guy, there's no way this passes. Yeah. This happens all the time, and I wish the press did not give it so much credence, because that's what these idiot legislatures just want attention.
Yeah, Ezra Dyer, who writes for Car and Driver, he actually lives in the district that this bozo represents, and
he's proposing that all the electric charging stations be taken out.
Well, all the free electric charging stations, unless they also put in free gas and diesel pumps as well.
And that's so moronic.
Yeah,
and it's not going to pass unless the North Carolina legislature is equally moronic across the board. Which is possible.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into politics too much here, but it's not. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that we've seen happen in a Republican-controlled legislature.
True, but we've also seen grandstanding legislators do this all the time, and they know it's not going to pass, but they want the attention.
And the reality is, I mean, this proposal only applies to free chargers, which are, in general, only level 2 chargers. So these are slower chargers, slower AC chargers. They're usually similar to home chargers, usually about 6 to 7 kilowatt output. So these are not ones that you're likely to use. These are the types of chargers you're going to use if you have a shorter range EV and you're just stopping somewhere to do some shopping, do a little opportunistic charging. These are not chargers that you're going to use on a road trip.
And is he saying only state-run ones, or is he saying all?
I haven't seen the text of the bill. It sounds like he wants to get rid of all free chargers.
Yeah, so let's say I am a mall and I want to encourage people to go to my mall and I have some free chargers there. It's not costing me much because it's a slow charger. I just want people to go there. Oh, I'm going to have to take it out or offer free gas. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. The DC fast chargers, which are the ones that most people probably want to use, those are all for pay. None of those are free to use. So those theoretically wouldn't be impacted by this. So yeah, you're right. It's just grandstanding. This is not something that we're likely to see be a major issue anywhere else.
It is really fascinating, though, how offended people are by electric vehicles for some reason.
I know
that's puzzling to me. I guess we love our gas vehicles. I'm not sure what it is, or maybe the coal and gas lobbies are just so. I don't know what it is. I don't get it. I mean, oil and gas, not coal.
Yeah.
In fact, coal would benefit from electric vehicles, probably, at least in some states.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, I don't think we want to encourage using coal to produce the electricity for EVs because that would kind of be counterproductive. Counterproductive to using EVs. But Eric Duckman also had a comment in the chat about the way EV chargers are configured, which is, especially if you look at most of the Tesla superchargers, they're usually set up where the chargers are configured at the back of a parking space, and for the Teslas, for example, the expectation is you're going to back into this parking space. They usually have a fairly short cord on them, and Teslas are all configured with the charging port on the left rear corner of the car. So if you back into the port, the charging cable's right there. That's not always necessarily convenient for other makes of vehicles, but most other chargers are, at least right now, are still configured in roughly the same way. So you'll have a bank of chargers, sitting along the back edge of some parking spaces at a mall or, store or somewhere else. And you back in there or pull in forwards, depending on where your charging port is, and plug it in. That's fun. Generally okay. You can make that work if you're if you're just driving your vehicle and you're not towing a trailer, for example. What we are starting to see now is more charging stations being configured with the chargers set up more like the way gas pumps are set up at a gas station, where you pull through and you pull up beside the charger. And this is really important if you are towing with an EV, because if you have to back into a charging spot, like especially if you have something that has a charging port on one of the rear corners of the vehicle, like a Tesla or a Polestar or a Volvo or a number of other vehicles, you would either have to pull in front of multiple chargers and block multiple chargers so that other people couldn't use them, or you would have to disconnect your trailer and then pull in and then reconnect your trailer after you charge. And that's a real hassle to have to do. So we're starting to see Electrify America's got about 8% of their locations now set up with at least some pull-through chargers. And they're going to be doing more. And other companies like EVgo and others are doing more. Even Tesla is starting to configure some supercharger locations this way so that you can just pull up next to a charging port, plug in and charge. And considering how much range you're going to lose when you're towing a vehicle, towing with an EV, you definitely want to make that as convenient as possible because you're probably going to be charging on a fairly regular basis with those vehicles. So as the number of EVs and the different types of EVs and the use cases for EVs continues to grow, we're going to see the charging networks evolve to adapt to support those different use cases.
Mr. Sam Abuelsamid, thank you so very.
And I won't be around next Sunday. I can't remember if you said you're doing a best of on
reruns.
Sunday, or?
It's good.
Yeah. Okay. So no problem then.
Thanks.
All right.
Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Yes, it's time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, electric vehicles, smart vehicles, autonomous vehicles. 8888 Ask Leo is my phone number. If you want to ask a question, make a comment, make a suggestion, you can also call outside the U.S. and Canada where it's toll-free, but you have to use Skype out to do that. 888-827-5536. Should be really toll-free globally if you use the right equipment to reach us. There's a website, techguylabs.com. That's where everything I mention, all the links and everything will go. So you can go there. You don't have to write anything down. This is episode 1910, and it's free, techguylabs.com. No sign-up, no nothing. No nothing. Michael is on the line from Long Beach, California, our next caller. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Leo, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. Calling in with Scott Wilkinson gone yesterday.
I know.
I wanted to
such a loss.
His memory will live until next week. When he's back.
Yes, exactly. He'll be back next week.
Johnny Carson said, "I will remember this honor as long as it takes me to get to my car."
You sound like Johnny when you do that. Very well.
You just gotta clench the jaw. I guess.
Car. Yeah.
So I had a couple of kind of budget sound. Like home theater sound systems to recommend.
Oh, good.
Just in the last couple months that have been fantastic for me. The first one is for my home office. I've got the way it's set up. I've got the only way to put a TV is on like a extendable mount in the corner. So I've got to hang a speaker down. I had like a 2.1 built-in like Amazon Essential soundbar that would rattle, unfortunately, because the bass is in the soundbar.
That's not good.
So I so I said, I got to redo this.
Yeah.
The TCL Alto 6 Plus 2.1 channel Dolby Audio soundbar. It's a soundbar with a subwoofer. It's a wireless subwoofer. I have it on a mount under the TV, and the subwoofer is kind of right nearby in the corner. It's in my home office, which is like a 10 by 12 room. I've got a 43-inch 4K TV, it's a TCL, not a super fancy one. But I'm, sitting like about, my viewing distance is about 4 feet because I just pivot my office chair, put my feet in the daybed, and watch TV. And it's fantastic. It's really, and it's $100.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. It's perfect for like a small room where you can't set up like a surround system. And I'm late in my life, right in the middle, but I still have very good hearing, and it's clear. I'm a musician as well, so I
like to get reviews from musicians because, of course, you're very much more aware of what you're hearing.
Yeah, like I called you before. I was an opera singer.
Yeah,
and I recognize voices. Like if you do a drop the needle, I'll tell you who that singer is.
Wow.
Or if you're playing something. I'll be able to hear the highs that nobody else is hearing and the specifics of the string. And it's the clarity for the price for $100 is unbelievable. And it's great for a small room. I'm
looking at other reviews from places like Tom's Guide and Ranting, and they also agree for that price. It's a great choice. Has a remote control, which is nice. Mm-hmm.
And obviously it'll work with ARC if you have HDMI. I have a Roku TV and a Fire Stick 4K Max is fantastic.
A lot of people are saying good things about those. I've always been reluctant to. I've had a Fire Stick and always reluctant because I feel like the sticks tend to overheat. And of course all the ads from Amazon. Sure. But boy, I'm hearing more and more good things about this 4K Fire Stick.
It comes with like a little dongle. So it's HDMI dongle that hangs, so it hangs a little bit off.
It's a little cooler. Yeah,
it's a little cooler. But I had the previous 4K stick and. This is like lightning, and this is all on Wi-Fi. It's probably doing like a 2 point because like the router it's 10 feet away, but it's in another room between a wall. But it's lightning fast. It's a huge upgrade, and I'm sure it'll be on sale.
$29.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the other one for a kind of a living room setup is the Vizio M Series 5.1.
Those are very good. In fact, Scott has consistently recommended those as for the less expensive soundbars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a $330. I think I paid for it. It's a soundbar that does Atmos, as it can.
We reviewed it when it first came out and really liked it. So that's
2 little rear speakers. I had an Onkyo kind of in the box system from before that I I had to remove. We did our floors, but we redid our floors in our house, so I had to tear apart, my home theater system. And I said, well, I don't want all these wires anymore, because it's essentially the rear speakers connect to the subwoofer.
Right.
So if you put the subwoofer by the couch, you can put the two things. And I bought a couple stands for them for the rear speakers, so there's no wires running across.
In general, you're tempted with the soundbar to say, well, that's going to do everything. I don't need a subwoofer. I don't need surround speakers.
You do.
You really do.
You absolutely do.
I mean, certainly by itself, a soundbar, even the $99 soundbar, will be a massive improvement over your TV's audio. But for best results, you want a subwoofer and ideally surround speakers as well. And the Vizio M series will do that, which is nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I said, my wife was, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, and I said to my 9-year-old son, Jackson, this is how this should sound. He's like, ooh.
This is better than movie theater sound, Pops.
Yeah, if you ever need a man, not half the age, but
somebody with still good ears is what you're saying, and I get it. I understand.
Yeah, Scott's not rolling his eyes.
Scott and I both admit that because we're in our 60s, our hearing isn't as good as it used to be. Although I still have, I think, of course I'm biased, pretty acute hearing. I can hear problems in audio for sure. So, yeah, that's part of my business. So, I appreciate good sound, I have to say. It makes a big difference. It makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. Even if you don't have a $1,000 TV, if you have some decent, good sound, it as long as it's a 4K picture, it's a great picture. It absolutely elevates everything. Completely agree. Sound is a very important part of movies. Hey, it's great to talk to you, Michael. Thank you for the review. High recommendation for the TCL 6 Plus soundbar, $99. And then for your higher end, the Vizio M series, I think you have the 5.1.2 version.
Correct, yeah.
That's the
$330, but it's nice for a decent sized living room. And,
very nice.
Yeah, for the price, it's fantastic.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Hey, I always, it's nice. Everybody calls, they take. Every once in a while, somebody's going to give. I appreciate that.
Like, I couldn't be Micah talking about microphones.
Hey, I appreciate the call. Thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks.
Take care. They take. I'll put links in the show notes to both devices if you're curious and you want to know more. And obviously, it goes kind of fast, so finding them is always tricky. But the TCL Alto 6 Plus 2.1 channel soundbar for the very low end. If you're willing to spend a few more, I agree. And Scott, I know, agrees as well. The Vizio M series, they have a couple of soundbars in that line, but he was talking about the 5.1.2 premium soundbar. 8888 Ask Leo, the website. We'll put those at techguylabs.com. I'll put the links there so you can get them. I also put them in the chat room. We have people who chat with us while we're doing the show. Your Team Tech Guy, always great to have them at irc.twit.tv. Chris Marquardt, photo guy.
Hello.
Moin, moin.
I'm trying to find something to gesture with. I could use the fly swatter. How about
gesturing with a camera? So how was your family?
Don't make that sound. We live in the countryside. Don't make fly sound.
That time of year, I know. I hate the flies.
Yeah, family's good. Parents are okay. It was a good weekend.
Good. Yeah, I had a great week with my mom, so I know just how you feel.
Yes.
It's nice to visit the old ones. It's
too bad. It's like it's an 8-hour drive one way. That is.
Oh, that's worse. It's only a 5-hour flight for me. That's 8 hours. Wow.
Well, 5-hour flight plus time to get to the airport.
Well, yeah, it ends up being all day, one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least I don't have to drive.
Anyway, seeing your parents is worth it.
Yeah.
All the time.
It was so nice, and of course, leaving my mom, we're just in tears because she's 89. I don't know how many times I'm going to get to see her again. It's a special, very special.
Sure.
Okay, did you send me something? Should I pay attention?
Yeah, we're not going to show pictures. We'll talk a bit about the coolest camera in the world.
Oh, how nice! Did you see I got my Snapchat selfie drone? That's the coolest camera in the world. Look at that. Maybe I'll do.
What does it do?
Well, you put it in your hand and you throw it in the air and it takes a selfie.
That's all it does?
Yeah.
Is it autonomous? Is it?
Yeah, it's totally autonomous. You don't have controls. It's got switches for, I don't know what. They're different.
I have to get one of those.
Well,
I mean, it's not that I don't have enough selfies, but that's
cool. Well, I'll be playing with it. The I got a cheap one. This one's a little pricey. I think it's like $250. I got a cheap one for less, and the camera was awful. But I'm thinking this is going to be better. I'm hoping.
Snap does a good.
Yeah, they're going to do a
job
good
with
job.
that.
This has got their name all over it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, I have.
Look that thing up. I totally missed that thing.
It's the Pixy, Pixy. But I do have a very nice, the new DJI Mini 3 is fantastic. Fantastic. I love that. Oh, the best camera ever. Yes, I agree. We're going to do a live stream.
We have already talked about it, but new things are happening in a couple of days. So
we're going to do a live stream on Tuesday of the press conference. Yeah, with Rod and company. So that's going to be fun. All right, I'll talk to you in a few.
All right.
I feel like I should be doing some Irish jigs here. Michael Flatley. Leo Laporte, your tech guy and Lord of the Dance. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. 888-827-5536. Toll free. Trevor on the line from Burnaby, Canada. Hello, Trevor. Wow. I think Trevor might be in the monkey cage. I don't know. Phil on the line from Arvada, Colorado. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Leo. Thank you for taking my call, and it's nice to talk to you again.
Thanks for calling. What's up?
I have a question about mobile networks. I have been a long-time Verizon customer, but I know on the show you, from time to time, speak very highly about T-Mobile. I recently read an article in PC Magazine, which I'd like to know what your opinion of the accuracy of that. And T-Mobile won the best mobile network for 2022, hands down.
Wow!
I'm just wondering if there's any validity to the PC Magazine review. And
is it Sasha Segan who did the review? Do you know?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Sasha's great.
Yes. Okay.
So
yes, he did.
Totally trust him. He does this every year, and it's a big deal. They go out because, unfortunately, it's hard to test mobile networks because what I get here is going to be different from what you're going to get there. So to really test it, you have to go all over the place. Sasha will literally go to 50 or 60 places to test this. He says we drove more than 10,000 miles across the country with new software. Oh, this is cool. That tracks dropped calls.
Yes.
Which is a very good. So I don't know of anybody who is as good as this. There are some other places that will give you measurements, but I think often they are in the back pockets of the mobile phone companies. And I can tell you PC Magazine is absolutely not. They've been doing this for more than a decade. So,
would you recommend that I give some consideration to changing my iPhones over to T-Mobile? Is that possible?
Well, here's the thing. Sasha went all over the country, but all you care about is what it's like in Arvada, Colorado, right?
Which is close to Denver, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it may be that you go all over the country, and if you do, then you probably should pay attention to these kinds of national ratings. But frankly, all that really matters to most people is how well it works where you are. And there are a couple of things to pay attention to. AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all are starting to roll out 5G networks. And that could be relevant if you have a late model phone that supports 5G. That could be relevant. AT&T and T-Mobile are doing these new mid-band 5G. Verizon as well. And so all of the sales pitch around 5G was around what we call the millimeter wave, the very high frequency 5G. It's so high frequency that it only goes about 800 meters. So unless you're within 800 meters of a specially configured cell tower, and by the way, there aren't many of those, you're not going to see it, you're not going to get it, you won't get the benefit of it. Mostly it's in metros, a few blocks in New York City and Philadelphia that are going to get the 5G millimeter wave, but that's super fast. But that's what they advertise around. Then there is what T-Mobile has, which is the low band, the 700 megahertz low band 5G, and that's essentially identical to LTE, no faster. So it's, it begs the question, well, why should I care if I have 5G or 4G? It doesn't matter. And that's roughly true. There are some benefits, but you're not going to really see it. Where these companies are now coming into their own is this medium band in between. T-Mobile calls it ultra capacity, I think. Verizon calls it ultra wideband. I don't know what AT&T calls it. But if you're in an area that can get that, probably not Arvada, definitely Denver, you will notice a big leap. And again, if you can get it from Verizon but not T-Mobile, Verizon would be a better choice for you. If you can get it from T-Mobile and not AT&T, then T-Mobile. So it really is very localized. They do, I'm looking at the numbers for T-Mobile. Their network looks pretty good. The dropped calls are identical across the board. Failed data connections, actually T-Mobile's worse, but only by 1 percentage point than Verizon. Speeds aren't really that different. In fact, Verizon has the fastest maximum because they've got that millimeter wave. Again, who cares? You're not going to get it. But my experience with the T-Mobile and Verizon, I have both. I have both in front of me right now, is if you can get those middle band ones, and for instance, I can't get it where I am right now, but when I go over to DMV, which is right next to the highway in Petaluma, I can get the ultra capacity. That's 150 megabits. My daughter, who lives in San Rafael, also near the highway, there's a little clue here, by the way, in this, also gets 150 megabits down, 30 megabits up. It's fantastic. It's as fast as you would ever need on a mobile phone. I don't know why you'd need gigabit on a mobile phone, but it's certainly as fast as you'd ever need, right?
Right.
So by the highway is kind of an interesting phrase. These companies, of course, know that the biggest usage is people in cars. So the first place they're going to put these towers is by highways. So, and the last place they're going to put them is rural areas. You're a suburb of Denver, right, Arvada?
That's correct, yes.
So it's not rural per se.
No, we're several miles away from Denver. It's within quick driving distance.
Do you work in Denver or do you work in town?
No, I work in town.
Yeah. So really, it is going to be very, very specific to you, okay. And that's really the problem with any national test. It doesn't matter what somebody can get in New York City if you're in Denver.
Right.
So how do we judge? Are you happy with your current Verizon? I'll tell you one thing. Verizon is for sure more expensive than anybody else.
It is more expensive than T-Mobile. I found that out.
Yeah.
But if I were to choose to go with T-Mobile, I would be able to transfer my iPhones over to T-Mobile.
Almost certainly, yeah. Some phones are carrier locked. If you bought it from the carrier, it may be carrier locked. Verizon's not allowed to do it for longer than 3 months, I think. So they unlock it. They had to do a consent decree with the FCC over that issue. So if it's not carrier locked, you can usually just swap the SIM and it'll work fine. I would get, if you go to T-Mobile from Verizon or Verizon from T-Mobile, you want to always get a new SIM because you want it to support the latest frequencies, and a new SIM is required to support, for instance, the ultra capacity. So the best thing to do, ask a friend, ask somebody who has it in your area in Arvada and say, hey, how do you like your T-Mobile? It is cheaper, for sure. I just got my Verizon bill. It was close to $300. My T-Mobile bill was only close to $200. So there you go.
Yeah.
I have many phones on each carrier. I have all the carriers because that's, because I wanted to see how it works. And there are advantages to each. But T-Mobile also is better for international travel if you care about that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Leo. I appreciate
You're welcome.
your time, and I appreciate your guidance.
And trust Sasha. Sasha does a stellar job. In fact, this is the kind of thing, it's sad that computer magazines used to do, PC Magazine especially, and they do less and less because it's expensive. Sasha has to go out on the road. It takes him months to compile this. Thank you for doing it, Sasha Segan, PC Magazine. I'll put a link to their new rundown in the show notes. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. You know, well, it's not for one phone. $300 is for many phones. Verizon is the carrier that my S22's on, but also Lisa, Lisa's son, Lisa's ex-husband. There's quite a few of us on that account. And then the T-Mobile, that's this iPhone. That's this account that my daughter and son and ex-wife use. So, you know. And I also have a number of T-Mobile data SIMs. Actually, maybe my data SIMs. Most of them are Google Fi, but I think I have my iPad minis on T-Mobile data. So it's part of being a tech guy is, you know, close to $1,000 a month in cell phone expenses. Those will taper off, and that doesn't include what we pay for the other hosts. So it's just, you know, that's why I'm begging you to join Club TWiT, please. Please join Club TWiT, please. Yeah, T-Mobile sent my mom a phone. I was a little upset. I said, Mom, you bought a new phone? You already have an iPhone 13. Why'd you get an iPhone 11? She said, I didn't buy it. They just sent it to me. I said, oh, I'm sorry. T-Mobile didn't know she had the iPhone 13, thought she was still on an iPhone 6S, so they sent her an iPhone 11. She says, I like it. It's lighter than my iPhone 13. I said, okay. We'll take the SIM out and we can activate it. Oh, no, Mama, don't you take my Kodachrome away. It's time for the photo guy. Chris Marquardt is here. Hello, Chris. We missed you last week. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I was busy.
You're busy. That's okay. Busy's okay.
I'm happy to be back. Very happy to be back.
I have been working weekends since 2004. And then before that,
that's what you get for being in the entertainment industry.
You work holidays and weekends.
You get to work when other people are entertained.
I tap dance for you while you're at your leisure. But that's fine. I like it. It's I get people's attention. I don't have to compete. So today, by the way, Chris, I should say, is my photo sensei. I got to give you the plug at sensei.photo, sensei.photo. Recently returned to the tips from the top floor. You weren't gone long, but tfttf.com, the world's oldest and best photography podcast. He also does a podcast on the future of photography, talking about computational photography, and has written many books on photography. All of this because if you're a photographer, you got to do a lot of things to stay alive. It's hard to live on just photography alone, right?
Very true. Very true.
I love your books. I highly recommend them. So today you said you want to talk about the best camera in the world.
No, the coolest camera in the world.
Coolest.
And I mean it. I mean, literally mean it, because I want to briefly talk about the James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh, yeah. It's probably like minus 300 or something.
It is. Interestingly enough, and that's just one of the things that is so amazing about it. It has these 4 instruments on board, and one is this mid-infrared instrument, which is cooled down to 6.2 Kelvin, and which literally means it's super cold. I mean,
almost
really
absolute
cold.
zero.
So
it's almost as cold as you can get.
It's almost as cold as you can get, and it's interesting because it is. It has a cooler, so it means out in space it's not cold enough. I don't even know it. It doesn't get close to 6.2 Kelvin where
Wait a minute.
the JWS
it has to be
is.
air
So
conditioned even though it's out in space.
They have a fridge. They have a fridge on board, pretty much a cryo cooler, which has hydrogen as a coolant, because otherwise you can't get it that cold. But the interesting thing is it has also heaters on board, because I just found that out recently, and I was really amazed because where that thing came from, Earth, we have an atmosphere, and that atmosphere has humidity. So it has, and out there, even though there is no atmosphere, there is still some molecules and stuff out there. So what James Webb apparently did is it brought some of that humidity with it. And now the problem is, when you have ice on something like mirrors and so on,
Oh, not good.
then and here on Earth, if you put something frozen outside, like let's say you want to dry your clothes outside in winter, that ice will sublimate. It will disappear, and it will go away. But under a certain temperature, that doesn't happen. So that ice would be on those mirrors and instruments forever. So pretty much,
that's not good.
That's why they needed to be really cautious to cool that down to the exact right coldness without the ice forming and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. And in 2 days, there is July 12th, there is an event, a big event. I think you told me you're going to do a live stream.
Yeah, on our podcast
they
network.
Want to reveal the first pictures.
Our space guy, Rod Pyle, and I will be getting up 7:30 our time in the morning, 10:30 Pacific Eastern time for their press conference. Yeah, they have the pictures. They're trying to make it exciting. So
they did a real good job hyping that whole thing up. But I'm really excited about seeing. We've seen some engineering pictures so far from some of the instruments that were just there to show that it does work and that it's like an alignment procedure and that kind of stuff that worked. So those were impressive already. So the scientific pictures are supposed to be out of this world, literally.
I can't wait. So, is this a better camera than anything you can get at home? I mean, it's a pretty big mirror, isn't it?
I guess you wouldn't use it to take portraits and that kind of stuff. So it is the camera that can look the furthest into the past and out there. It's also finding exoplanets. That's one of the reasons it is there. And I recently listened to a podcast where they explained how that exoplanet finding thing works. And that is interesting in itself because, when a planet orbits a sun, then it's not just the planet being attracted by the sun, it's also the planet attracting the sun. So that sun moves a little bit when the planet orbits it. So what they're looking at are, for example, suns out there, stars out there that move slightly. And that's what they need really good instruments for. And one of those motions is if you look at that orbit of a planet, so it's coming towards you and going away from you, that sun moves slightly towards you and away from you, which means it has a slight shift in its spectrum. So you have a sun that has a little red shift and a little blue shift, very tiny, minute changes in the spectrum. And James Webb has an instrument on board, a spectrometer on board in the infrared wavelengths that can see these kind of spectral shifts. And this way show that there are planets somewhere thousands and millions of light years away. I mean, that is just mind-boggling.
It's super appropriate that our photo guy is going to talk about
these, I'm a nerd.
Yeah, these photos from the deepest reaches of space. You said back in time. Yeah. Well, the way you get back in time is by taking as far a picture away as you can, because light travels 300,000 kilometers per second, 186,000 miles per second.
It takes time to get to us.
If it takes time to get to us. So if you're taking a distant photo, they're going to go. It's such a good camera, they can go far enough back to almost the beginning of the universe, 120 million years
and
to the beginning of the universe.
The things it'll see are so far back in time that when the light reaches us, that means that some of those things are not there anymore, actually. Yeah. They have already disappeared.
The stars of nova and
the pictures.
Yeah. Just to answer my own question about how good a camera this is, and of course it's really not appropriate to compare it to your digital SLR, but the near cam, the infrared camera, is 40 megapixels. So you would think, it's going to be thousands of megapixels. 40's decent. It's really not the number of megapixels. It's apples and oranges. But the near spec has two sensors, each 4 megapixels, so that's a total of 8 megapixels. Then there's the MIRI imager, that's 2 megapixels. There's the NIR-ISS, 4 megapixels. So in other words, these aren't like super high resolution cameras, but they're very sensitive, isn't it? That's the key, the sensitivity.
Well, they're very sensitive, and the big size also helps them be a bit more resistant against radiation, the kind of stuff that happens out there. So
it's pretty harsh.
I think they'd rather use a bit more rugged technology, because you can't send someone out there to swap out a sensor. That does not work.
Here's a picture. I know we're on the radio, but I will show a picture of the telescope with humans in front of it. This is the big mirror. So it's 3 or 4 times the height of a human. The sensor,
the entire telescope with its shields and everything is the size of a tennis court. I mean, this thing is
pretty big. Yeah. Pretty cool. I think it's an amazing achievement, that a decade in the making, and on Tuesday we'll get the first images. And you know what? We have a space guy coming up next hour, so you get 2 for 1 space. What is our word of the month? What is our photo assignment this month, Chris?
Our current assignment is beautiful.
Beautiful.
And we have 2 more weeks for it to be revealed.
So take a picture, not a beautiful picture, a picture that expresses the word or concept beautiful. Upload it to the Tech Guy group on Flickr. Tag it TG Beautiful. In 2 weeks, Chris will review 3 of your images. And we thank all of you for participating. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much.
All right, Mr. Marquardt. I thank you for your time.
All right, next week back to regular photography.
I'm glad. You know what? This was a great one to talk about. I love it. I'm very excited.
It's just exciting, and it really clicks with me on some other levels than just beautiful pictures. So
exciting.
Yeah.
We have the CERN particle accelerator now operating at a highest level ever. We have this.
They're already starting to find new particles.
Amazing results already. We have this telescope.
Wild,
yeah. It's kind of an exciting time.
Science.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.
All right. See you next week. Bye.
Next Sunday, no show. A week from Sunday, 2 weeks from today, there will be a show. I will be back. So I will be back on the 24th. Next Saturday, this Saturday and next, Micah Sargent will host. And then we'll do a rerun on the 17th. And you'll know that because I'll be recording all these things. Oh, Chris said next week. You're right. Oh, let me tell Chris, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Chris. I forgot. Thank you. I should have said something. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo the phone number. Let's go to Randy in Huntington Beach, California. Hi, Randy. Leo Laporte.
Hello there, Leo.
Hello, Randy.
I have 3 different computers that I've been using Thunderbird on, so I can keep my email local. So when I go out of email range, I can still read things and review things. And I'm having a horrible time trying to sync Gmail among 3 different computers. And I'm wondering, is there a program I can use that will do that? Because Gmail doesn't seem to want to cooperate, and Thunderbird doesn't seem to have a way to make it function.
Huh. So Gmail, Google's free email solution, is a phony IMAP. But it's so prevalent. It's the #1 email provider in the world, to my knowledge, certainly in the U.S., that almost all the email clients out there will work with Gmail, mostly pretending that it's an IMAP server. The biggest difference between Gmail and a traditional IMAP server is Gmail doesn't have folders, it has tags. So a single email can have, it looks like folders when you're on Gmail, but it really is just a tag. And so a single email can be in multiple folders, which IMAP does not support. So I'm looking at a Mozilla support page, Thunderbird, could be Thunderbolt, Thunderbird and Gmail. It says Thunderbird can be configured to work seamlessly with Google's Gmail service. Messages are synchronized between your local version of Thunderbird and the web-based Gmail. So it's supposed to do exactly what you want it to do.
And it does that for one computer, but once you get 2 or 3 computers, it's like they're 3 separate, unrelated functions.
That's the whole point of, that's not supposed to happen. That's the point of IMAP, which, unlike the old days where you would download email and delete it, with IMAP, you leave the mail on the server, in this case Gmail, and Thunderbird everywhere should look exactly the same because it's getting its information from the server. There must be a difference in the way you've configured it. One of the things IMAP does is allow you to subscribe to some folders and not others. So make sure that you are downloading all subscribed folders on all versions of Thunderbird and that you have subscribed to the folders you really want. That would be the first thing I'd look at. You also have settings in Gmail for IMAP, and I'm wondering if maybe IMAP has not been turned on in Gmail. Let me just look at my Gmail settings. There's a whole section on IMAP and PopMail in the Gmail settings. See all settings. They keep changing everything. Forwarding and Pop IMAP. So yeah, make sure IMAP is enabled. That's under the forwarding and Pop IMAP setting. This might have something to do with it. When I mark a message in IMAP as deleted, you can either auto expunge, which means it'll update the server immediately, or it'll do it later. The client will do it later. That could be the source of difference. What differences do you see?
I have to go through and delete the same email message on all 3 of the computers.
Yes, that's an expunging thing. So deleting in IMAP is not really...
They don't have the same folders. I turn it on and I create, I just bought a new Lenovo laptop and I'm trying to recreate everything. And it's just been crazy because I reached the limit with Gmail saying, hey, you have, too much mail and too much everything. And so I'm trying to get back down to the 15 gigabyte limit. And one computer has an email that I'll delete and it'll still be on the other 2 computers.
Yeah. So there is this thing about deleting an IMAP. IMAP deleting is not deleting. It's not the same as if you were deleting a local message. And that's why they use the word expunge, which is a terrible word. When you delete a message in an IMAP client, you're actually not deleting it. You're sending a signal to the server to delete it, and then the server, at its leisure, decides whether to delete it or not. There is that setting in Gmail for whether to expunge immediately or to wait for the server to get around to it. It may be you should swap that setting to make sure. There is, Scooter X in the chat room gave me a Gmail help section. Why is my account not syncing across my other devices? And there is no help in this help. Yeah. It comes from 2020 for one thing, so it's pretty old. Maybe a couple of suggestions. You've got to make sure IMAP is turned on. Maybe turn off POP just in case, unless you're using POP on some other client. I would say, check the expunge settings. It should be exactly the same. The other thing to understand, and this might be related, is when you're using an IMAP client. By the way, everybody listening, you're probably using IMAP. IMAP has replaced all other protocols pretty much everywhere. So you're probably, if you're using a standalone mail client to access a service like Yahoo Mail, Outlook Mail, Gmail, Fastmail, some other mail service, you're probably using IMAP. IMAP, though, is a little different from how we usually think of mail. For instance, you don't actually download and store the mail in IMAP unless you explicitly tell it to do so. You cache it. Again, the IMAP client, what are you using, just out of curiosity? Outlook, Mail? Oh, you said Thunderbird. What am I saying? You said Thunderbird. So Thunderbird, the way Thunderbird works, different. Now, Thunderbird is both POP and IMAP, but the way Thunderbird works differently with IMAP is it does kind of download the messages, but it doesn't guarantee that they'll be on the hard drive. They're a cache of the most recent messages. You can go into Thunderbird settings and say how much of the mail you want to keep. If you want to download it all and keep it all, I'm pretty sure Thunderbird will let you do that. Maybe that's the thing to do. But remember, that's going to take up as much drive space on your drive as it does currently on Gmail's drives. Yeah. Sometimes people want that, though. In fact, it's probably a good idea because things can go wrong with a Google account, and they can suddenly turn you off, and that would be bad. So if you have a copy of everything, that's nice. In theory, what you're trying to do is exactly what IMAP was designed to do. IMAP became ascendant because everybody had multiple computers. So nobody wanted to be in that situation where you'd have different, mail on different computers. So what IMAP does is a view to the server. The server is the official authority, what computer geeks call the canonical source of your email. And then every other client, every place you have Thunderbird or any other client, doesn't matter. You don't have to use the same one. You should see the same thing. The only difference is occasionally with expunging. I'm not sure about folders. Again, Google does a weird thing with folders, and it may be that Thunderbird is trying to treat it as a real IMAP client, and it's not because Google doesn't have folders. It only has tags.
Trying to sort things. I found with Gmail, it's hard to do sorts that make a whole lot of sense easily.
Yeah, no, I actually abandoned Gmail for a variety of reasons. Partly because it wasn't real IMAP, and I use Fastmail now, which is a real IMAP, and I like it better. I can control the sorting and all that stuff. You might try just another email client because it's IMAP. It doesn't matter what you use. So Thunderbird on one should look exactly the same as Outlook on another. It should be exactly the same. So you might try another client to see if you get better results.
Is Outlook fairly reliable nowadays?
Yeah. You're asking the wrong person.
I need to know.
I'm not a fan. But yeah, the unreliability comes with the fact that Outlook stores everything in one giant hairball file, the PST file. Thunderbird does it right. It has separate text files for every mail message, which is great because if Thunderbird fails or something goes wrong, you still have all those messages and they're readable in other applications and so forth. It's a standard format. But there are other good email clients that you can try on Windows and Mac that support IMAP that use a standard MBox format or something like it. It might be worth trying just to see, do a whole fresh start and see. You should have exactly the same thing on the Gmail web and on your client. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. And yeah, that's the other question. Which Outlook? Because Outlook is, Microsoft calls everything Outlook.
Yeah.
It's all Outlook now.
I gave up on Outlook long ago. I'm in the process now of just creating the folders on my new laptop that I had on my desktop.
Yeah.
And what I have created, I just noticed that they're different. It's just really bizarre.
You should. Okay, so the way it works. Oh, that's okay. So that's what's going on. Now I understand. Don't create folders on your desktop ever, especially with Gmail Thunderbird. That is a mismatch.
I'm sorry, my desktop computer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but don't. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're using Thunderbird to recreate your folder structure. Let it download that from Gmail. Do not do it manually.
It doesn't seem to be doing that. I've had it for about a month.
And it's not downloading the folder structure.
No.
Huh. Well,
I agree.
I do remember that. That's why I was actually surprised, and I read this to you from the Thunderbird folks, that they say, oh, no, it works perfectly. Because I do remember it didn't used to work perfectly with Gmail.
Yeah.
But because Gmail is so dominant, it is certainly, remember, they gave up on Thunderbird for a while, was abandoned.
Right, exactly.
So, if you're going to come back and start developing again Mozilla, you got to make sure it works with Gmail or no one's going to use it.
You think Lenovo does anything proprietary?
No.
Okay.
It's not the Lenovo. So you're on Windows.
Yeah, Windows 11 on the new one, 10 on the old one.
I would try, there are lots of good email programs. A good email program with Gmail should automatically download the folder structure. So it's exactly the same. It should automatically keep it identical. When you expunge, it should expunge on the server, and they should look the same. Sent mail should be the same in all folders. All of that stuff should be identical. It may be that it may be a Thunderbird issue. I know, they
should look at would be that go to Gmail and make sure the expunge setting is set there. right?
Yes. Well, there's two settings. One is immediate, and one is whenever I get around to it. Change it to immediate.
Okay.
Thunderbird should be downloading. So this now, if it's not downloading and I'm going to put folders in quotes because they're not folders, as I mentioned, they're tags. But Thunderbird should be downloading those tags and creating folders. Make sure that might go to the subscribed setting. So there'll be a setting in Thunderbird that says only download subscribed folders or download all folders. Make sure you download all folders.
All right.
Make sure Thunderbird's set up for IMAP. Make sure Gmail's turned on for IMAP. I wonder if there's still a problem with Thunderbird and Gmail, to be honest. Thunderbird's good. I'm glad that they brought it back.
Yeah, I've been trying to get away from all the Microsoft Gmail.
Yeah, rightly so. Yeah.
And, I'm at the point where I'm thinking perhaps you should consider doing regular rants against technology.
God knows it'd be easy. It's funny because it's always tempting, right, Randy? There's plenty to be ranting about. But lately I've been thinking maybe I'm going too negative. I should be, because people used to listen to the show because it was exciting. Technology was, changing our world and making it good and exciting and different. And there was always something fun and exciting to talk about. And I'm thinking, is there any way for me to be more positive about this stuff?
Well, it is exciting.
It is exciting. It is good. So I don't want to dwell on the really bad stuff, but there's so much of it.
I will try doing 30-second rants.
Just call me and rant. Just call me and rant. That would be great, Randy. Rant and Randy for a Sunday afternoon. What's the problem today, Randy?
Exactly. Randy's rant.
Don't get me started.
I'll go get my guitar now.
Oh, is she going to play while you rant?
I'm helping her unload. She just came in from the car.
All right. Well, you go help unload. It's a pleasure talking to you, Randy. I hope some of that helps.
Well, I'm going to give it a try. I appreciate your help.
My pleasure.
The show.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, hey. How are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number. The lines are open, 888-827-5536. I have a few lines open, actually, if you want to call now. Would be a very good time. Website is techguylabs.com. Put links there. Anything I talk about on the show, you can go there and get it. It's free. There's no sign up. We also put a transcript of the show after a couple of days. It takes us a little while to get it, but a day or so later, we'll have a transcript of the show, including times where, I mentioned something, so you can jump right to that part of the audio or video. Yes, that's there as well. Just look for episode 1910 at techguylabs.com. Jerry's on the line from Bucks County adjacent.
That is correct, Leo. I'm calling from Bucks County adjacent. I'm sort of almost some of their glory. I'm actually in Montgomery County. But in Bucks County, Doylestown is the county seat, the home of Pink, the singer.
Oh.
Tim Stack, the actor of Son of the Beach, going back to 2000.
Oh, wow.
Author James Michener, Pearl S. Buck, to name a few.
Look at that. So even though you're in Montgomery County, you see Bucks County as your county, kind of.
No, I don't. It's about a half a mile from my house to the county line.
Oh, all right.
That's about it.
Okay. Our family seat is in Erie, a little distant from you.
Erie, PA.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom always tells me, she says, we have a grave site in Erie. Just remember that. I said, thank you, Mom.
That's the complete opposite corner of the state.
It's the other side. But I could, I'll wave at you as I go by. So what can I do for you, Jerry?
Well, you can make me happy, but it's not going to happen. But
I'm afraid that's a little too expensive. So I don't guarantee happiness. I do guarantee satisfaction.
Okay. Well, Leo, a while ago I called and I was using an app. I got off of the store, the app store.
Yeah.
And I was able to get different radio station streaming services.
Oh, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
And and I could program them in, and they would come on and this and that. Now something happened. The evil heart of money, I guess, of commerce has come in. iHeart and Odyssey. Now, I had to download both of their apps, but some of them you can't even turn them off once you get them on. What is the purpose of this, Leo, other than to piss me the hell off?
So are you listening just on your phone, or do you have one of those internet-connected radios?
No, on the phone and sometimes on the computer, too.
Okay.
Mostly on the phone.
So this is, and by the way, full disclaimer, this show is owned by iHeart, and so we're on iHeart on the app. And many of the stations, I don't know about the station you're listening to, but many of the stations are iHeart stations. But I am completely objective, okay? So I will tell you the objective truth. Everybody, when the internet came along, the first reaction of radio stations was, what? Who cares, right? They're no threat to us. But it wasn't very long before they realized, oh, yeah, you know what? Digital technology could be a threat to us, especially if people can get it in their cars. So they said, well, we better be there. We better be on the internet. So every radio station, every Tom, Dick, and Harry started an internet stream. And usually you'd go to their website and there'd be a little reel player or something like that on there, and you press a button and you'd hear it. But then they realized there's a problem. The financial model, the business model for streaming is the exact opposite of the business model for radio. Let me explain. Radio, you get a license from the FCC, pardon me. You build a tower, a transmitter. You hire some guy like me to talk into a microphone. You play some discs. That's the cost. One person listens, 100 people listen, 1 million people listen. Doesn't cost you any more, right? Same price. So obviously, you do everything you can to get as many people to listen as you can, because the more who listen, the more money you make. Streaming, it's the opposite. It's more like a magazine model where every single person who listens costs you money. And the more people who listen, the more money you spend. So radio stations suddenly got bills. They said, the geek at the station would say, hey, good news, boss. We got 1 million listeners all over the world. And then the boss would get the bill and he'd say, well, wait a minute. This cost me $10,000 a month. Oh, well, thank goodness our advertisers must be happy. Well, no, they're not, because Jake's Dodge City in beautiful downtown Bucks County adjacent PA doesn't care if somebody in Hamburg, Germany is listening. They're not going to sell them a car, right? So the advertisers who are in local radio are mostly local said, well, we're not going to pay to be on that stream. I don't want somebody to call me, asking about my carpet steaming service from Hamburg, Germany. So suddenly you get a double whammy. The radio stations go, not only is this costing us money, but advertisers are actually complaining. And so we have to take them off. In fact, that's why when you hear a stream, and this is true for TV too now, you see different ads, don't you? Because it's a different market. It's no longer just that city. It's now a global market. In fact, there's some companies that will block you. They'll do geographic blocking and say, well, you can't watch our stream because we can't make any money off of you. So all of this got to be very chaotic. And then in the meantime, listeners loved it, right? We love it. I can listen, if I'm home in California and I want to listen to Mom's radio station in Erie, PA, I can. If I want to see how the Pirates are doing, listening to the Pittsburgh station, KDKA, I can. So you listeners thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And as a result, there were radio directories on the internet. There are actually companies made radios. People like our friends at Bob Crane and C. Crane made internet radios that you could listen, just like the regular radio. Your car now, most cars, all new models anyway, can get streaming, and not just satellite streaming. They can actually get internet streaming in many cases. If you get in a Tesla, you can listen to TuneIn. So then the radio companies, and there are only a handful of them now, but the radio companies said, well, hold on. We got to make this work. So iHeart, CBS, they've changed their names, but changed their name to something else. I can't remember who the name of CBS radio is now. Is it Emis? I can't remember. Cumulus. there's a handful of big companies that own radio stations in this country, all created their own app. Because at least if they're streaming on their own app, they can get a little smart about advertising. They can sell advertising on the app. They can do, if it's an app on a phone, they know where you are geographically. They can literally sell ads to somebody in Hamburg, Germany, who's listening, so they can get smarter about it. Instead of you just listening on your browser, now you have to listen in an app. And the company apps pretty much will say to, there are still a few apps like, there was radio.com for a long time, like TuneIn Internet Radio. There's still non-affiliated apps, but most of the companies have said to those non-affiliated apps, no. You can't carry our stream. We want our listeners to listen on our app, because then we can monetize them, we can track them, we know who's listening, and we can make a business model out of this. We can never make a business model out of just the open internet. Odyssey, is that the name of it? Odyssey owns CBS Radio? Okay, well, it's very confusing. I'm in the business and I don't understand it. Anyway, but you do understand that, right? It makes sense that they each have their own app now. So those radio directories that existed, radiolocator.com and stuff, they went from hundreds of thousands of stations to fewer, and most of them not in the U.S. This is not what happened in the rest of the world, by the way, but the U.S. radio scene is unique. It's very particular. So that's why now you have to have the right app. And if you want to listen to the tech guy, you have to have the iHeart app. Now, this isn't going to last long because there's something called podcasts that completely break this model. You don't have to have a tower transmitter, a guy behind it. Well, you do have to microphone on a guy, but other than that, you don't have. And you can do it on the computer, and you can distribute it on the internet, and you can sell ads against it. So podcasting has changed everything. And that is kind of an existential threat to local radio stations. The big advantage local radio stations have is they're live and they're local. I'm live right now, sitting in a studio talking to you. And so unlike a podcast, I can be timely, I can be up to date. Something happens, I can talk about it. But, it's getting hard for radio, especially when the people who have your, iHeart app or your Odyssey app on their phone also have a podcast client on their phone, and millions, did I say thousands? Millions of podcasts to choose from. It's a much more complicated space. So, in answer to your question, I think you're out of luck. You're going to have to use the app that they want you to use. In most cases, I think radio stations are kind of trying to have it both ways. Many shows are available on podcast. Now, those won't be live. Those will be on demand. You'll be listening after the fact. Not so great for morning radio if you want to hear the traffic updates, things like that. But some shows, like this show, you can listen to as a podcast. Many of the local stations make podcasts out of it. We do as well on my podcast network at TWiT.tv. In fact, if you go to techguylabs.com, that's where you're going. You're going to the podcasts. So you can listen to past shows. And it's a different set of advertisers. It's different. Probably the solution to difficult to use radio apps, and that's what your problem is, Jerry, I know you don't like these apps, is try a podcast. Apple has a podcast app. Google has an Android podcast app. There's also Pocket Casts, which is a very popular app. Overcast, popular on the iPhone. Get a podcast app. And it's a little self-defeating on my part, but you can always listen to shows as podcasts. You might find those easier, frankly, than trying to figure out where the radio station is. Laura, do you think I still have a job tomorrow?
Maybe.
Laura's hoping, because if I don't have a job, I don't know where you're going, Laura. 8888, ask Leo. Hey, it's just the way it is, folks. That's the capitalist world. And that's where innovation happens. It's exciting. And truthfully, companies like iHeart are excited about it because it's opportunity for them, right? Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. We live in interesting times, right? Isn't that the old Chinese curse? And one of the things you do see, thanks to technology, is disruption in every business. So what's going on in the radio business is happening across the board. in all kinds of businesses as the internet introduces a whole new way of doing business, a brand new customer base, a global customer base. Used to be if you were a potter selling, plates on Main Street, you were competing against whoever else was nearby and maybe the local department store. Now you're competing against every other potter in the world. That's really disruptive. It really changes things, and all the business models have changed. And so companies rise and fall. I was just looking at the history of CBS Radio on Wikipedia. The entry says CBS Radio was a radio broadcasting company owned by CBS Corporation, founded in 1928. Went through a few changes. Became Westinghouse Broadcasting, then Infinity Broadcasting. Then they got acquired by a company called Entercom, which has now changed its name for reasons I don't know to Odyssey. So you see how not up to date I am. Odyssey is the name of it. They're no longer one of the biggest radio companies in the world or in the country. The real interesting thing to me, and probably to you as a consumer of content, is how much content there is in so many different places. I'm old enough to remember when there were, 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC on the TV, and that meant 3 channels. That was it, right? Of course, you had to get out of your seat to change it, so that's a good thing. There were, every town, every big city had maybe 50 different radio stations, all of which competing to, for your attention and your ad dollars. Some towns had as many as 2 or 3 newspapers. They had a morning newspaper and an evening newspaper. Most towns don't even have a local paper anymore at all. Lots of changes, and you can look directly at the internet for that. But from the point of view of us as users, there's more news than ever before. You don't need a daily paper. You can get every minute you can get a news update, right? We don't ever have to say, well, what happened yesterday? We know if you want. Looking for something to watch on TV, you don't have 3 channels. You have, I remember when the chairman of Comcast said, someday there'll be 500 channels. And I thought, what? You're crazy. Was it Ed Roberts? I said, no, you're crazy. There won't be 500 channels. Oh, 500? There's 1 million, really. I mean, there's 500 channels on your cable system, perhaps. Actually, probably more than just 100 or 200. And of the channels you want to watch, fewer than that. But there's lots of channels. But that's just your cable system. Then there's your internet. Plug in a Roku or an Apple TV or a Fire Stick, and suddenly there's thousands. And that's just on your TV. Then there's, you go to the internet, there's podcasts. There are more than 1 million active podcasts. 100,000 podcasts launch every week, according to Edison Research. Most of those never get past episode 1, but hey, they're launching. So in some ways, it's an embarrassment of riches. It's hard for us, isn't it? We have so much stuff to listen to. It's also hard, and I'll speak as a podcaster, not as a radio broadcaster. Radio broadcasting, relatively easy. If you can talk somebody into letting you on their air, and that's the hard part. If you can get, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I talked somebody to let me, can I use your radio station? I'd like to talk geek stuff. Somehow I talked them into doing it. But once you do that, there's not as much competition, right? How many radio stations can you hear? On the other hand, as a podcaster, launching a podcast, you're going up against 1 million existing podcasts and 100,000 new ones each week. And how do you get anybody to pay attention to you? I'm glad I started podcasting back in 2004, because if I were starting today, I'd probably have to have a night job or a day job. I'd have to have another job, that's for sure. So it's a fascinating world. It is disruptive. It is disrupting. Imagine, if you're Brian Roberts and you think you got your handle on the world and it's changing underneath your feet. Imagine the folks who founded Netflix, Reed Hastings and company, and Ted, and suddenly, the company that was flying high during the pandemic is suddenly crashing, and they have to fire people, and it's a rocky ocean we sail in. And yet, I think for consumers, for you and me, for the people listening and watching, it's a good thing. I do. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. It's time for Rod Pyle. I said it's time for Rod Pyle, spaceman extraordinaire, editor-in-chief of Ad Astra magazine, space.nss.org. He's also the author of many fine books about space, including First on the Moon, the story of the Apollo 11 astronauts on their 50th anniversary. Hello, Rod Pyle.
Hey, I think my publisher owes you a couple $1,000.
Hey, we're getting close to, is it the 53rd anniversary?
Yeah.
July 16th or 20th, yeah.
The 16th was the launch, 20th was the landing, yeah.
Wow.
And you're going to be at sea, my friend.
Well, I be at sea. I will be. You asked me before in the break. I'm leaving, we're flying to Seattle Thursday night. We're going to spend a day in Seattle looking at Paul Allen's MoPop, his Museum of Popular Art and Culture.
Yeah.
And then going to go over and wave at the Amazon spheres, see if I can get I'll knock and see if Andy Jassy will let me in. And then we're going to take that boat to Alaska. The COVID cruise, we're going to call it, on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
We thought by now it'd be all over. So we planned a year ago, it's more than a year ago, to do this cruise with the TWiT family. So we've got about 100 people, podcast listeners, who are coming along with us. Won't get to know any of them because they'll all be wearing masks. But have a unique hairstyle. That'll help. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody's going to be vaccinated. Masks are required and so forth. So I think it'll be fine. So Rod, this is a very exciting week in space time travel.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. And this week, on Friday, our latest installment of This Week in Space will be about alien megastructures.
Oh, there are no alien megastructures.
With Isaac Arthur, who is a YouTube star.
Yeah.
With 700,000 listeners.
Wow.
Actually, he's a really good science communicator. And he just gives the idea behind them, So we talk about Dyson spheres and ring worlds and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so he
cool
treats
stuff.
it as kind of a fantasy thing.
Yeah.
We're not doing a coast to coast here.
I just finished
that way.
a fine science fiction series called The Bobaverse, and it has a topopolis in it, which is a mega structure, a tube-shaped space habitat. It's so big it actually curves around the system's sun, all the way around. Amazing.
Well, and if you remember the Dyson sphere in, I forget which episode of Star Trek Next Generation that was, but they featured a Dyson sphere that was, to see it was kind of interesting. And then, of course, we had it shoved down our throat in Moonfall, much to my eternal dismay.
I love these ideas, and I wish there were such things, but none of them exist as far as I...
Well, not yet, but give it time. So, before I forget, tonight at 6:39, we're going to have a Falcon 9 launch out of Vandenberg. So that's probably too far for you to spot it. But if you're on the Central Coast or in Ventura, Santa Barbara County in Southern California, you should be able to see that rocket take off and return. It's going to go back to a barge landing. It's just a routine Starlink launch. I just thought I'd mention it because we Californians might have a chance to see the little guy.
It's always fun to see that. Now, it won't be dark yet, so it won't be as cool as a night launch.
Right.
Yeah.
But you'll see a little flare, and there may still, but as the sun goes down, you may still see a little bit of a scattered contrast.
That'd be cool.
See. We got some interesting stuff back from the OSIRIS-REx mission. This is data that came down a while ago, but it takes some time to evaluate these things. But they spotted what they think is evidence of a landslide. And this, Bennu's only 1,800 feet wide, so it's a small asteroid, but there's just enough collective gravity there with the mass that it's got that there was an impact. Something smacked into it and made a small crater a couple hundred feet wide. And they were watching the pattern, the dispersal pattern of the dust and the pebbles that went up when it was hit. And the trajectory that it took indicated that this was not a hard surface impact. So as they had suspected, bennu has a collective mass, or density rather, only slightly more than water. And so we think it's just a rubble pile.
NASA called it a giant ball pit.
Yeah, exactly. So fact, you're whacking into this kind of collective
when the OSIRIS started to land on it, they said the spacecraft would have sunk into bennu had it not fired its thrusters to back away immediately after it grabbed dust and rock from the asteroid's surface. It was going to sink.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And so this is just further validation of that, which is cool because they had postulated these kind of rubble pile asteroids for a long time, but it was good to finally get some real data on that. And of course, Tuesday, we have our Webb first light at about 7:30 our time, local here in the West Coast. And they announced their first targets, which were cool, although they were a little more constrained than I thought. So the Carina Nebula, which is a big, bright nebula about 7,600 light years away. WASP 96b, which is an exoplanet, very large exoplanet. They're doing spectrum studies of that.
That's the thing you said last week, the most interesting about these James Webb Telescope images, looking for planets that might support life.
Yeah, and this is a gas giant, so it's doubtful. I mean, it could.
Ain't nobody got time for a gas giant. No one going to live on a gas giant.
Part of the problem is, most of what we can spot easily out there is so close to its parent star that if there is life, Jim, it would be really heat tolerant. Because there was another story that came out about a small, here it was, a Neptune-sized exoplanet, LTT 9779b. It sounds like the one they landed on, the aliens. 260 light years away, classified as a hot Neptune, circles its parent star every 24 hours. Ooh. So a year is 24 hours.
Day. Wow.
And they said the orbit's so close, the atmosphere so charged with solar radiation that it would be about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit and melt lead, chromium, and stainless steel, because you got to include the stainless steel. What they can't figure out is, with that kind of starshine hitting it, the atmosphere should be gone, and according to tests and probably what we'll see from Webb, it's not. So they're going to be looking at that. But not right away. Interestingly, out of these first targets, the one I thought was kind of coolest was a cluster of stars called Stephan's Quintet in the constellation Pegasus. It's notable for being the first compact galaxy group discovered in 1877. Sorry, not stars, galaxies. 4 of the 5 galaxies in the quintet are locked in the cosmic
1877. That's a long time ago. Wow.
But my favorite thing about it is it's the little cluster of objects that was featured in the movie It's a Wonderful Life when was it Chauncey?
Are those the angels getting their wings?
Yeah, when they're talking and they're kind of, well, no, you're going to have to go down. But do I get my wings now? So it's that group of little
it's where the angels live.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a live stream along with NASA, 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern on Tuesday, you and I. Will we see beautiful pictures? I mean, first of all, they have the pictures already, don't they?
At least some of them, and they're processing them.
They take a while to download.
Yeah, and they're going to be smart about this. They are going to make sure these things are visually spectacular because it's a lot of money and you want that money to keep coming, so you keep the taxpayers happy.
So there'll be something cool to see. Stuff. And there'll be. Would you think there'll be any science, like real valuable science?
What they can do in that period of time, I mean, you got to figure they've got large teams working on this stuff immediately as it comes down. How much they'll give us right away, I don't know.
It's early.
It does take a long time. Yeah, and it can take, I mean, as we're seeing some of the stories I'm giving you, I think the thing from OSIRIS-REx was like, I don't know, many months or a year ago. So it takes time for teams to go through this.
This is like the ribbon cutting ceremony. Or the groundbreaking. The telescope's there. It's taking pictures. We're going to get our first images on Tuesday. And I think over the next few years, we're going to get some very interesting science from all of this. I hope so. Rod Pyle, Space 2.0, Editor-in-Chief at Astra. We are 1 day, 17 hours, 47 minutes, and 53 seconds. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for letting me be your tech guy once again on the radio. Thanks to Professor Laura, our musical director, spins those discs for us to Kim Schaffer, our phone angel, who's ready to go out in the 90-degree weather and enjoy yourself. And, of course, most of all, thanks to you for listening and calling and making this possible. Couldn't do it without you. Time for, I think, a couple more calls before we wrap it up for the day. Micah in Maine, the airplane pilot geek. I always get it wrong. What is it?
AirplaneGeeks.com.
AirplaneGeeks.com. Hello, Micah.
Hi. Look, Leo, I know I just spoke with you yesterday, but you had a caller calling about Thunderbird and Gmail, and I think I have the solution to
good.
the problem.
Yes.
I love Thunderbird. I use it for everything. I use it for my Hover account. I use it for my Gmail account. Got a couple of Hotmail and Yahoo accounts with it. The problem with the Gmail, and the only reason I use Gmail is because it's ubiquitous and it's easy and I can depend on it, but I hate their file settings. They have a strange file system. They don't set up subdirectories. They have tags. And that's the issue with Thunderbird. Everything transfers down, and you can use it with Thunderbird, and I have a Gmail account on my iPhone, and I have it on a couple of different computers. But all your subdirectories, because their system, their strange file system, comes under a mini on Thunderbird. They have that subdirectory that you see when you're on the website or on the webmail called Gmail. On Thunderbird, it's a grayed out italics Gmail, and any subdirectory you put in there goes under that. And so I have one for Allianz Travel on my Gmail under that subdirectory, but you got to find that grayed out subdirectory called Gmail because they use tags. They have a strange file system.
Yeah, Gmail is fake IMAP, and that's the biggest difference, yeah.
And that's the problem. All the other IMAP systems, like Hotmail or Yahoo or, whatever, they're fine. They work just great because it is real IMAP. But Gmail played with it. But it's there, and it syncs. You just got to find that Gmail grayed out on Thunderbird, grayed out in an italic subdirectory, and usually everything else comes in under that.
Good. Yeah, well, I hope our caller is still listening. Great tip. That's, it's silly because Thunderbird knows Gmail is weird and should be able to handle it in some sort of responsible way. The problem is that on IMAP, there is the root directory is called inbox typically. In the case of Gmail, it's called Gmail. That's everything is under the root directory. But there is an inbox that you can look at that is above it. And I guess in Gmail, there's nothing there. Everything has a tag or something. It's just, thank you, Google, for making a mess of this. I bet your Hover works perfectly well, right? Because it's IMAP, real IMAP.
Actually, Hover is a bit difficult in terms of its file system as well. On the webmail, on the webmail with Hover, it's a little fouled up. But with Thunderbird, absolutely perfect.
Yeah, because it's real IMAP. Yeah, I use Fastmail. It's real IMAP. And Thunderbird would handle it just exactly right. It's a little bit, though, on the developers of Thunderbird because Gmail is easily the #1 email program in the world. So they need to support it. Thank you for the tip, Mike. I appreciate it. It's good to at least have a direction to go for our caller. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. Mark in Los Angeles. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Leo. Thanks for taking the call. I've got a question. What I want to do is I want to do a video call with my aunt, and I want to interview her and get information about the family history, and I want to record it over a video call. That way I'll have a recording of it and just something that lasts a little bit longer than, just the casual conversations I've had with her. So what's the current best option for doing a video call that I can record and that also I can just send her a link that she clicks on and it just works, if that's even, I think that's available, but what do you know?
Zoom. Everybody knows Zoom nowadays, and so one of the reasons I mean, there are a lot of programs that'll do this. Almost everybody will do this. But Zoom is, your aunt, as I take it, older?
Older than me, and I'm old too.
So Zoom is something that everybody kind of knows how to use because of the pandemic. Zoom has a very easy recording button. It'll record the meeting, even if you have multiple people in the meeting. It does an excellent job of the recording. I've used Zoom. We use Zoom actually to do some of our podcasts. When our studio went down a couple of weeks ago, I went home and used Zoom to record a roundtable podcast with 3 other journalists. Recorded on Zoom. It worked beautifully. I highly recommend it. Zoom has and you get 40 minutes for free. So and probably that's long enough for your aunt. Nobody should have to sit on a Zoom call for longer than 40 minutes. So record it, and you'll record it locally. It will make a file that is initially in its own weird format, but after you close the call, it says, you want me to convert this? And it gives you some choices. MPEG-5 is the most compressed, but the MPEG-4, MP4 is the most compatible. So probably if you're going to send it to your aunt, turn it into MP4. And then you can just probably what I would recommend is uploading it to something like Dropbox, OneDrive, iCloud, whatever cloud storage you have, and sending her a link, because sending a large file is not practical in email. But send her a link, and it works great.
Okay.
Highly recommend it. If you're on a Mac, you can use FaceTime. If you're there's WhatsApp, and I think almost all of these video calling solutions, Facebook, Messenger, I think almost all of them will allow you to record. But I've used Zoom, and I use Zoom almost all the time, and it works quite well. Skype, probably do it as well. I just think it seems so easy to use Zoom. And there's a reason why Zoom was so dominant in the pandemic. It was just the easiest for everybody to use. And what was initially intended to be a business tool ended up being the tool everybody used to stay in touch with family and friends while we were locked down. So I think it's the way to go. And I think you're doing a good thing. When I visited my mom, of course, recorded a conversation. My daughter was with me, and she had lots of questions about the old days and so forth, and I recorded every one of them because, you want to save those. Those are great. Great to have.
Right. Thank you very much, Leo.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much for calling. Zoom, it's funny. Zoom really took off in the pandemic, of course, as with every company in the last 6 months, every tech company. They've fallen on hard times. The stock market is a cruel master. They reward you for the growth during the pandemic, but then the minute it slows down, as one should expect, because people are going back to work and can get together now, we don't have to Zoom each other, people freak out. The stock market goes crazy, punishes the company. People have to get laid off and so forth. It's very strange. The stock has, exactly right, Big Island in our chat room says, the stock has fallen on hard times, but not the company. That's exactly right. The company's fine. Phoenix Warp says, the stock market is the biggest what have you done for me lately? It absolutely is true. I am so glad you've been here. Thank you very much. Again, I'll mention all the links, everything we talk about on the website, techguylabs.com. This is episode 1910. I'm going to miss you for a few episodes. We're going off on that geek cruise with our podcast listeners. I will not be here next Saturday. Micah Sargent will be doing the show all by himself. Be nice. He's going to do a great job. We'll have a best of on Sunday. That's the 17th. And then on the 23rd, Micah will do it again. Be nice. make his show a success, and I'll be back on July 24th, and we'll get things back underway with no plans for travel for the rest of the year. I think I'm going to just stay home. So see you in a few. Thank you for being here. Maybe if I get a chance, I'll call in from the cruise ship. And if I do, you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, Leo Laporte, the tech guy, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Have a great Geek Week. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWiT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.